Okay, very much. So the name of this panel is Building Companies from Zero, which means all companies, opportunities and threats. So I'll leave you in the capable hands of Unai. Round of applause, please, for Unai. Yay!
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Unai. I am an advisor and an angel investor. As an advisor, we help companies with fundraising and M&A in a company called White Peak Partners, based in London and Spain. And we have with us a high-quality set of panelists with us that are going to share their time and experience discussing the main topic. We have Cristina Van Hoel. She's the director of the CEI Asturias, which is an incubator and accelerator of technology companies. She's also vice president of the European Business Innovation Incubators Association, and she evaluates, a lot of attention there, she evaluates EU funding for innovative SMEs. She has first-hand experience, therefore, helping early stage companies fulfill their needs of funding to fund their growth and technology development. We also have Valeria Dominguez. She's the founder and CEO of Felino, strategic e-commerce consultancy boutique focused on the digital transformation in the fashion industry. She's a mechanical engineer and an executive MBA from Harvard Business School, and has a vast experience in marketing, e-commerce, digital influencing in the fashion industry. We also have Susanne Birgersdotter, a serial entrepreneur from Sweden. She's founded 2 tech companies and is an expert in mobile app development, among others. She's also partnered at Milky Way Cap, which is an investment company based in Sweden, and has been nominated as the most powerful female founder both in 2017 and in 2018 in recognition for her entrepreneurial achievements. We also have Javier Ridruejo. He's CIO and CTO at the Business Federation of La Rioja, and also a partner at Emprende Rioja, which is a regional initiative to foster the startup ecosystem led by the government of La Rioja, and has a PhD in computer engineering by several universities, and is here to share his experience in the field. So without more delay, our first question to you guys: how many entrepreneurs in the room? Okay, good. Early stage, I assume? Okay, good. So you're at the right place. So we only have half an hour, so I'm gonna go direct to the first question. Building a company from scratch. It's an exciting but uncertain endeavor. And you know, I would like to ask the panelists, what would be the first sort of challenge that, in your view, any startup would face?
I think the most important thing you have to do when building a startup from zero is to build a mock-up as soon as possible, and then find a first customer that can, when you, with your first customer, you can evolve the product, you can pivot if you are thinking some needs are useful for them, but they are not. And then you can refine your product and make a good service to improve your company.
A mock-up, you're talking about product validation, yeah, and commercial validation, very important, yeah, as well. Get those paying customers early on. How can a company with limited resources sort of tackle that? I mean, any tips related to that?
I would just like to say that from your question, that is so important from an investor side that you have the right team. Because we are always looking at a team. I mean, you can be like a single founder, but you are not strong alone. So you really need to get the people that have the skills that you don't have into your company. And when you have all the skills, it's so much easier to get to founding.
Excellent.
I would like also to emphasize that when working with companies, early stage companies, the same as you have, it's very important the team. Let's say there's, of course, every challenge is a big challenge when you start, but team, it's very important. Team, complementary team, have different skills. Maybe you have the technology, maybe you have the idea, but you need people action tracked. You need people who are able to do things.
I think there's always sort of best practices and then kind of how you end up doing it. And I think the best thing for sure is to build a team with several founders, because in the early stages, you don't really have the money to pay for anybody to come help you. And so you're basing off your business on the team that you've created. And if you're only one person, which you can be, in my case, it's always been just me, then you really have to offer services and products that you yourself can create and market all the way through. So it makes it a little bit harder, but it's also a very stable situation. Often, businesses fail because the partnerships don't work out. So obviously, if you're on your own, that doesn't happen. Your relationship with yourself usually does work out. And so I do think single founder can work. It's worked for me several times in the past. But yeah, attracting talent's a real challenge. It's usually just you and a horde of interns. And for the very few that are able to raise funding, and I say the very few because, in this environment, we're going to talk a lot about funding, but I've never had external funding, and a lot of people I know have created business without external funding, and so it's really just you and like 10 interns, and so you really have to create something that you can do on your own. If not, it's not going to work.
So in terms of that early product validation, how important do you think it is to sort of plan stage-wise as opposed to getting into the silo and spending 2 years or a year and a half developing sometimes quite expensive technology before getting out there and actually validating your assumptions? Because there's always a set of assumptions putting into any development, right?
Yeah, something like deep technology is going to require funding because you're not going to be able to have a prototype in weeks. And so I really love the lean startup model. It really has worked for me. The most tragic thing you can do if you're starting a business is create something amazing that nobody wants. And so getting that testing early is very important. Me, myself, like my first business, it took me 6 months to go live and another 6 months to figure out that it wasn't going to work. If I would have been able to shorten the first 6 months, I would have known the same thing faster, and it wouldn't have taken me a year to pivot. When I pivoted, I already had really understood the market a lot better. And as a result, I was able to offer something that people were not just wanted, but were willing to pay for, which sometimes online is really tricky because we're living in a free world where everything's free and we get amazing services for free. And so being able to charge for something is the trickiest thing. So I was able to, in my first phase, create something that people wanted to use, but that weren't willing to pay for. And my second pivot has been towards something that people are willing to pay for. It's not as grand of an idea, but it's something that works. So.
When I founded my game company, I think that we remade the game like 12 times. And it's so important that you can kill your darlings. If you have an idea and it doesn't work, and you can really see that, and you have been testing it, just go on to the next one. Kill your darlings.
Excellent, excellent. So idea versus team, that's sort of two things that always come together. It looks as if team is always perhaps more important than the idea. Ideas change, you have to adapt. In fact, as an early stage company, there is so much change, you have to navigate through so much change. How is that process? It's an early stage company, not a lot of structure, corporate structure, and so on. How can you know which path to follow when there is so much optionality?
There is always a paradox between being very focused, which in fact is important because you don't need to be distracted. You have a technology normally, you have a lot of opportunities, and you need to detect, like a kind of magic, what is the niche you become. But in any case, being focused, it's always related also to be flexible, the ability to react. This means these are difficult balancing. This difficult, nobody has the rules. Even one entrepreneur who has made it one time and has success, maybe for the second, it's not the case. So there's no clear rule, but this ability to react should also be compensated with this focus, okay? And probably is the team, the key of the team. So probably one sole entrepreneur has no, this sense of magician of detecting the clear opportunities, but the team can complement the different visions, the different reaction they have with the market, with clients, with providers, with users. Maybe in this consensus, you have this idea of how to balance this narrowing focus with this broad focus.
Anybody else to that point? Sorry?
No, I can. You can hear me? Yes? Yes? No. I think it's everything about the team. Now you have to create your ideas, to implement them, and you have usually to pivot your idea to become a product that is really useful for the customer. So if you have a good team with good skills and well organized, I think you can reach to the goal of making a good product. So I think it's everything about the team. If you have a really good idea, it's very disruptive. I think you can even go too early to the implementation or to the market. So no one can need this product you have done, and you are wasting your effort and your money.
I would like to pull a sort of a thread that I think you were sort of almost implying that there is that companies even at an early stage have to sort of create some sort of ethos about who they are, what they are about, some sort of identity or brand. How important is that, and could that sort of help serve as a sort of almost a compass to navigate through those changes in order to guide you in the right direction? Again, I mean, there's a lot of options on the table, and there's I guess a degree of opportunism that you need to maintain, but at the same time, you guys mentioned focus. So how is that process?
No, go ahead.
Well, the process is complex. Let's say it's difficult. Nobody has the truth about the situation. It's everything can change, everything can evolve, but I think what is important is to have the radar, the option open, and be smart. You need to be reactive, but also proactive. Let's say, don't let the life only marks you with this sense of opportunity. You need to be clearly focused, but in the end, have the ability to react, to be flexible, and to pivot, as you mentioned, or even you mentioned, even to pivot with the reality shows you that the path is not correct. And here I think that the ecosystem, when the ecosystem is rich, you have different views you can incorporate. You have the public sector help, in the private sector help, like incubators, accelerator, the investors' view, which is very important. They are, probably the guys, they give you, okay, let's go for another. And yes, this radar should be open. So yeah, the challenge is you have a lot of challenges.
Excellent. So that brings you to sort of seek that sort of feedback from third parties, being investors, mentors. There's plenty of sort of resources available. So guys, use all the free stuff. It's always can come quite handy. How important, Suzanne, for example, in your experience as a founder was sort of tapping into that sort of external feedback as to about the ideas that you were sort of building. How much of an influence did that have in your direction?
You mean about the mentors and
Investors,
the people around me?
yeah.
I always had the mentors, because when I started my first application company and then the game company, I didn't have any skills. I mean, I'm not a programmer, not a developer. I never worked with IT before, but I wanted to make an app. And I did, and then I had an app company and then the game studio. But for every time I was trying something new, of course, I needed to talk to people who had the skills that I didn't have. So today, when I'm a mentor for startups, I mean, I have skills that they don't have. And I think that's very important for them to be listening to someone else. And it doesn't matter if that person is like 20, 40, or 50. It depends on how they are working and the kind of skills that they have that you need in your company. Sometimes you maybe don't need the skills about building a game company. You maybe need someone that's good at programming or development or business. I mean, there's so many different things that you need in your company. So, and can I say something more?
Sure, of course.
No, I was just thinking about it. That is, when you're having a startup and you don't have so much money and you can't hire people, I mean, we're sort of talking about that we are saying that you need a team, but in the same way, you don't have the money to get a team. And I think it's very important that you shouldn't be afraid to take other people into your company. I mean, that you are giving them parts of your company. So many people are saying, this is my company, I want to have all the shares for my own. But I don't think that's good, because if you are giving away shares, they will work so hard for you and probably harder than you. I just wanted to say that. I think that's very important.
Yeah. Just let me add a thing, because as I mentioned, I run an incubator with this very, very early stage. And for this kind of problem, of course, how to complete a team, how do you engage a CEO when you don't have money to engage a CEO? We have running a kind of pilot project, which is CEO Wanted, when we put in contact technology-based project who have this feeling that they need to complete the teams with people who has the skill to develop, even to scale up a company, but they don't have the idea. And we mix them. And I can say that, you know, the power of mixing those kind of profiles, those kind of people, is making progress for the company. The power of these people being in the team is not only to survive, it's only to help you to scale, which is the objective.
So it's a question of finding that complementarity between the different members, and if you don't have the skill sets required, then you need to, I guess, look outside and reach out to those who can help, right?
I mean, I feel like
yes.
that's tricky, because it really goes to the core as to why someone becomes an entrepreneur, and this varies for everyone, but in my case it's the freedom to choose. And so the problem with having partnerships with people that you may know really well or may not know very well is that all of a sudden you're recreating what you're running away from in the corporate world. So in my case, in the corporate world, I was just exhausted with the endless meetings. And it just felt like instead of really doing anything, just garnering that support was your whole job, and having meetings with this department and this department, and if it went forward, it would go forward in a really different way. So you had something in mind, and by the time it actually got executed, it was something completely different, because you had to give this away, and then you have to give this away, and then this is not reasonable. And so sometimes, you know, when someone becomes an entrepreneur, they're trying to sort of have their vision come to life and get up every day and decide, what are we going to do today? And so when you have, you know, a partnership or 2, 3, 4 founders, I feel like you are recreating kind of what you're running away from. And so for me, always, it's never been like a money thing. Like I'm a money sharer. I just, like, control has always been what I'm after. And so sometimes you just have to grow without those partnerships, and you can do it as well. You're going to do it slower. But I feel as though right now the conversation surrounding business is like business on steroids. It's like, well, if a business doesn't become a unicorn overnight, then what kind of business is this? This is like not a business. And I think that that kind of, you know, business on steroids is like a relatively new thing. And I personally, as an entrepreneur, always encourage people to go at it on their own. Business was always created from small to medium to large, slowly. And when you try to make that process go really fast, sometimes it's a horrible experience for everyone involved. And, you know, with all due respect to venture capitalists, they don't give me the friendliest energy, frankly, necessarily. They tend to be always all men. And so also as a female founder, I'm not interested in someone driving me that way. Like I want to create a life that I want to create. And you can absolutely do a tech-based business today on your own. And not that many people do it, and everyone feels like they have to go into this funnel of venture capital. I find that really sort of not the truth. It's the popularity of the moment, but it's not the truth. So to me, you know, slower is better, and that's how I've always done it. And I'm on my third, fourth business now, and so I always recommend that as an option.
That's a very tricky point there. So I guess we might have fallen into a sort of a frenzy a bit of wanting to become a unicorn at any cost, right? And in fact, let's talk about that one topic about sort of funding, because obviously, you know, venture capital is out there available, you know, for funding, but there may be some other avenues to fund your company. It's all about looking at yourself and your ambition and aspirations and taking an honest look, I guess, and projecting that and then targeting those that can help you there. Could be venture capital, maybe not. What other...
I mean, it's also smart money. I mean, it's not always that you are looking for money in an investor. It can be smart money because sometimes they, as I said before, have the skills that you need, and you can find that in an investor if you meet the right investor.
Yeah. In terms of the funding side, you know, as a very early stage company, you know, there's several sources that you can tap into. You know, friends, and family, of course, as well as angels, high net worth individuals, and so on. You know, all the sort of private money pool. How about public money? Do you think that people, you know, take, you know, make enough effort into those sources of funding? Looking into those?
Yes. I think there are plenty of sources of money now, and with the employment rate in Spain decreasing, there are many opportunities to get funded, your startup funded. So public institutions have plenty of money to help raise new companies like startups. In my region, we have a project is called Emprende Rioja, and we have finance for startups, and we help them to find new customers. We have a project for industrial companies to find technology providers, and we help them to find the best solution to their problem. And they are paying that solution to technological startups that we are trying to get to our region. So there are plenty of funding right now, yeah.
I mean, from the entrepreneur perspective, I'd say public money is like really hard to get. And like the most famous thing in Spain is ENISA, and that is like a 3-month process where you have to hire an agency to consume a substantial amount of your time and his time, her time, to apply and hopefully maybe get it after, you know, 3 to 6 months later, depending on when it is in the year. And that's kind of the best option. So, I mean, with all due respect, public money is tricky.
I agree
it's not
with
the
you.
solution.
Yes.
I would like to give another perspective of
Yeah.
public
Perfect.
money,
We're here for that.
Because public money is something is important because it's not the money of the entity who is managing, it's your money, and it's also my money. And I take it very seriously. And the compensation the public sector wants to have for an entrepreneur is, of course, to have regional development, is to have high qualified employment, is to have regional richness, and we take it very, very, very seriously. So it's normal, you know, bureaucracy is here, red carpet, you know, we all know about this. But if you have an intermediary, an incubator, who is able to manage the overview of programs, public programs offer for you, that can combine this public funding with private also funding, I think the role is correct. There is a market gap for early stage ventures, and the public money can help to solve this market gap. There's, of course, also the risk of not living off your customers, but living on public money. But probably this is short-term initiative. It is not. But public money, I think, and take it very, very seriously, EU money, regional money, national money, it's here to help you. So you can use it.
So why not try, right?
I mean, but the problem is that this is not the case for public money in general. I'm just talking specifically about entrepreneurship. What happens is that who is an entrepreneur? I mean, an entrepreneur is a dreamer, is a creator, is a business developer, is a visionary in the best of cases, but they're not good at paperwork. Entrepreneurs hate paperwork, and government is paperwork, endless amounts of paperwork. And so, like, I just remember in the early stages, for me, I was like, okay, well, let me look into this, you know? And it's sort of like a headache. And every program's like, well, this is for entrepreneurs who are green, 5'7" tall, live in this specific area, are creating these amount of jobs, are only in this subsector. I mean, I'd rather take lower taxes, to be honest.
Yeah, we
So
have.
that's an
I agree
interesting
with you.
point.
Actually, I think as an entrepreneur, I thought that finding angel investments was so much easier. It was like, and this is in Sweden, and it was like 6 months that we had to go there like once a week, and it was this amount of documents that you needed to sign, and it was I mean, as you're also saying, of course, there are different kind of entrepreneurs, but the most entrepreneurs, they are innovators, and they are like creatives, and then you need someone that actually can sit for 6 months and just go through all of these documents. And I wish it would be easier.
Yes, we know the difficulties of getting or applying that kind of grants and financing, but as we know that difficulties, we help them, to startups, to apply to that kind of grants. And we help them with the paperwork, and we help them to apply for those grants, to talk with the institutions to get the money as easier as possible. So it's part of our work as institutions to help them to get the money. It's not only the financing that we can help them. It's about networking with other companies, with other institutions, in other regions. Is the help for hiring people, the appropriate people to the skills they need, and to get training. For example, we can do many more things for them.
It seems to me that there's public money or public support can come in the shape of, in different shapes and forms, right? They can give you grants or funding directly, tax incentives, but potentially, or tax incentives to investors, business angels, and so on. I don't know if that's the case in the Nordics or in Sweden, but not necessarily.
Imagine if you just said as a country, okay, well, we want to foster entrepreneurship, really. And there are very many well-meaning ways to try, but what I would think would be very effective would be to say something like, first 5 years you don't pay any taxes. That's it, no taxes. Wouldn't we all be like, well, I had a really, I've been thinking about this idea for a while, and that's really getting behind things. And so government is necessary and is helpful in many areas, but in the business arena, giving it some breathing room through lower taxes is really all that's necessary. And applying sort of government structure and methodology to something like entrepreneurship, I don't think that's the solution. And I think in Europe, we're used to having a big government, fantastic in many ways, not fantastic for business creation. And so another thing would be, in Spain, it takes 2 to 3 months to incorporate a business. In the States, you can do it overnight online. In Spain, it takes, as a result of it taking 2 to 3 months to create a business, it also takes 2 to 3 months to have a business bank account. And until then, it's really hard to do a lot of things as a business when you're not really a business. And that's like 3 months. And in Spain also, you're paying cuota de autónomo for, imagine a whole year and a half, you're not really making any money. Not everybody has 400 euros every month to pay to the government for money you're not making. And that's a loss. When you start making money, you're still paying your 400 of autónomo. Then it's like, okay, I get it. But for that year and a half where you're not making any money, it prohibits a lot of people from entering the market when there's so many hurdles. And so sometimes I feel like, in Europe, we just kind of get in front of ourselves. We're sort of like our own worst enemy. And so sometimes, rules that work for big business, where we could have the argument that big business would be bigger and more profitable, employ more people through lower taxes. Yes, we could have that argument. But with entrepreneurs, it's life or death. It's like these same obstacles that big business just makes them a little less profitable.
I guess there's clearly some room for improvement there.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Thank you.
I suppose there's been as much as an advance that there has been. There could be still room for improvement. So I'd say, guys, do your homework, understand how the setting is in order to tap into those kind of resources if they're available. Any other closing remark? We have 10 seconds. Nothing. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, feel free to approach any of us now offline. We'll be happy to help. Thank you.